Three secrets of parenting. I hope that's why you joined me today. I'm Angela Brown, and I'm here today with Omuugn. And today we're going to learn three secrets of parenting. In fact, I got a secret for you. We're going to learn about 15, but I don't know what the three are for you. So I'm going to ask you right now at the top of the show to grab a pen and paper because you're going to want to write these down. Now, I got news for you. Omuugn is my dad. And one of the things that I learned about Omuugn is he's very short on words. He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's very wise. So you want to take a pen and paper and you want to take notes. Now, today he's promised us three secrets on parenting. And what that means is when he speaks, something's going to jump out at you and it's going to hit you and you're going to go, aha, that is for me. Write that down. Okay. I don't know what it is for you, but like I said, there are about 15 of them that I've been looking at from behind the scenes. And I know that they're really applicable because I've used them in my own life. So when those three hit you, write them down and start to apply them because something you know is not good unless you actually apply it. This is so good, right? So this is from The Insights and Wisdom of Omuugn, which is a book that he wrote, and it's volume 1 of 2 volumes. And they are both available right now, and you can actually pick them up so that you have your own copies. And today we are reading from pages 227 to 238. And these are called the insights. So today we're going to talk about the insights, and we're going to have Omuugn himself break them down and explain to us what these mean. Now, I want to preface this by saying the reason I am so excited about this particular topic is because we're talking about families. And this is part 2 of our topic on families. And one of the things that makes Omuugn super qualified is he's the dad of 19 kids. I'm number 4. There are 15 younger brothers and sisters that I have from the same mom, same dad, and Omuugn is the dad. So no one is more qualified to talk to us today about families and raising kids than Omuugn. So please help me welcome, with the insights and wisdom of Omuugn on families, Omuugn himself. How are you today?
Well, I'm really good, thank you. It's a beautiful day in eastern Oregon. Crisp spring morning. It's cool. It rained yesterday and it's supposed to rain again tomorrow, but today is a beautiful day. So it's time to get the garden in. So we're working on that every day.
I want to thank you for showing up today and for sharing your thoughts with us. I also want to thank our viewers and those that are watching the replay. We have Melanie Brown who says hello from Utah. So hello, Melanie. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us today. And I want to jump right into the insights because we've got a lot of them. And I want to cover these so that we can learn as much as we possibly can so that we can be not only better parents, but better people. The first one is we should celebrate our lives with the people we care most about. Tell me more about that.
Well, we say that we love each other, usually as a family. And sometimes we don't really understand the full spectrum of what that is. Everyone is really different. Everyone has their own quirks, their own personality. Everyone learns differently. Everyone really will end up with their own belief system. And so what we want to do is harmonize that. We need to look at the family as though it is an organism. You're not a solo entity anymore. You're part of a family. And that family has all different kinds of interactions and ramifications and activities and culture and tradition. Last week, we talked a little bit about every family should have its own traditions. Like we talked about the birthday song. Every year for a period of years, we would add another birthday song so that when we sang happy birthday to someone, it ended up being like 10 different songs and it would last like 2 or 3 minutes. And it was kind of a big deal to celebrate someone's birthday. We made that a really special day. You should have your own traditions. What we did on the traditions was we would try to work it so that the spouses could spend holidays with their family. And so we would hold Thanksgiving maybe a day early or a day late, depending on where it came in the week. We would celebrate Christmas on a different day. We would try to arrange it so that the spouses could spend time with their families and strengthen their family, and yet we would have a special time where we would gather as a family. So you can create your own traditions and your own way of doing things that fits into really what your ultimate goal is. And our goal was to be a strong, cohesive family, a place where you want to be all of the time. So that's the basis of it.
If I'm understanding correctly, then what you were doing by having a different day for celebration was to allow everyone to celebrate with the people that they love, which goes back to this insight where you were flexible enough. And I think that's the key. Sometimes we have to be flexible enough that we are adjusting our schedules or adjusting our holiday traditions so that it's inclusive of all of the family members and that they're able to celebrate with other family members or friends, as you say. Is that sort of correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're not only valuing our family, we're valuing the family from which the spouses came.
Mhm.
We're valuing all families, and we do that in such a way that everyone's needs are met. We're
I
we're Go ahead.
Well, I have something when you're talking about the valuing and the spouses, because you were talking about the fun birthday song that you created. And I know one time the family called my husband on his birthday and they sang him that song. And he wasn't at home, and so it hit his voicemail. And so he had a voice recording of everyone singing him all the birthday songs. Now his birthday is in April, and ever since that, he saved that one recorded message, and starting April 1st, he does this every year. Every morning when he gets up, he plays all the birthday songs to himself, like, "Your family is celebrating me." And that meant so much to him. And I laugh. I'm like, "Oh, you're playing the birthday song again." And he plays it every year, starting in April, all the way through the month, all the way through to his birthday, which is the 23rd. Like, "Hey, it's my birthday again," you know? And that was so memorable to him. Who knew?
Well, it's a fun tradition that we thought could be passed on to the children and their families. Uh, so little things like that make your family unique, and it creates moments that people look forward to. And that's one of the purposes of a family, is to create those moments. Another
Speaking of
thing.
creating Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking of creating moments, if we go all the way back to the conception of a child, one of the insights you have is children should be nurtured from the time they're in the womb. And I'm curious, how do you start nurturing a child even before they're born?
Well, the ultimate reality in everything is resonant frequencies and vibrations. So even when a child is in the womb, they feel vibrations, they feel harmonies, they feel they're sentient beings, even though they haven't been born yet. So, and then we look at children differently than maybe some. We see a spirit, a soul that is independent from the body itself. So when a child is in that gestation period, it's aware of all the things that are going on around it. It's aware of whether or not the family wants to receive it and whether the family loves it and is looking forward to it. It can sense music, beautiful music, and tones and all different kinds of things. And so if you want a really sweet, docile child, start while they're in the womb and surround it with all of those nurturing resonant frequencies, because it's like I talk to my plants in the garden.
Mm.
People say, "Why do you talk to your plants?" Well, there's a spirit that encompasses everything that's alive, and resonant frequencies. If you're nice to your plants, they're nice to you. And if you're harsh with your plants, they don't appreciate that very much. Plants are sensitive. They lean into the sun. They look for the sun. They look for nourishment in different ways. And people are the same way. People need to be nourished, and they need to be appreciated. They need to be loved. So it begins from the very, very beginning. And when you get a new baby, a new member of your family, the first thing that you do is you hold it and you snuggle it and you let it know that it's welcome. And so, yeah, you start from the very, very beginning.
Well, and I appreciate that. I know that when mom was pregnant and I was living at home, I know that not only would the family talk to the baby inside the womb, but I know also that when we sang songs, we would sing knowing that the baby could probably hear those songs as well. And so I have no doubt that once the babies were born, that they were then recognizing voices that they'd heard from even being inside the womb. So I think it's a very narrow wall. And I think just like hearing your neighbors in an apartment complex, you can hear those tones and those words. So I think that's a great insight to share. I want to say hi to Julie. Julie's joined us. Hi, Julie. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. For those of you that are just joined us, we are learning about the insights on parenting. And this not will only help you be a better parent, but also a better person. And we are reading from page 228 of the Insights and Wisdom of Omuugn. And there's a thought here that I want to share with you. It says, throughout our lives, we assume many roles. Each role gives us a view of life from a different perspective and a greater insight and understanding in our relationship with others. If you will, Omuugn, share with us about the different roles that we play in our lives and how viewing them from a different perspective can give us greater insights and understanding in our relationship with our family members.
Well, of course, we're all in a different situation. Myself, I am a brother, I'm a grandfather, I'm a father, I'm a great grandfather, I'm an uncle, I'm a cousin, I'm a brother-in-law. I have all different kinds of roles, really.
And a dad.
Oh, and a dad. I forgot that I'm a dad. We have a responsibility for each one of the roles that we're in. And so if we identify each of the roles that we have, then we can look at each role specifically and say, how can I be a better grandfather? How can I be a better uncle? How can I be a better brother? Whatever my role is that I'm looking at. And we can actually create sort of a harmony with our own lives so that we're fulfilling our responsibilities and our obligations and interacting with people that we love and that we care about, their family and extended family. It really helps to do that. Every role requires something different. I need to put more energy into being a dad than I do being a cousin, for example. But I shouldn't ignore my cousins completely. I can remember them with maybe a birthday card or a Christmas card, let them know that I'm thinking about them. They're also, what we've done in our family now is we've created sort of a little family reunion every week where the family can get together on Zoom and we can interact with each other, keep those relationships alive. So whatever relationship you're looking at, figure out a way to optimize that and to create kind of the relationship that you prefer. If you were the ideal uncle, what would that look like to you? If you were the ideal cousin, if you were the ideal father or mother, look at your roles and say, how could I make this role more productive in my own life? More of what I would prefer, more of what would create a better relationship with these people that I'm interacting with and should interact with. So it's just being aware really of those roles and creating what you want it to be. A lot of people, for example, ignore their cousins. They ignore their in-laws. They ignore most people. But that isn't what family is about. Family is really about tying things together and creating relationships that really have meaning. So, and that brings us to a whole new thing. As parents, we should teach our children these kinds of things. We should teach our children about being independent and yet being accountable and being responsible for things. We should teach our children how to learn. instead of just sending them to public school. We should be on top of their educational program. There are a lot of things being taught in the public schools today that are, I guess they would be okay for some people, but not for me. I would teach my children different things.
I guess I have to throw in with your roles that you play, the role of teacher as well. If you're willing to teach your children then and you're taking that responsibility, that's yet another role that you're playing.
Oh, absolutely.
And I want to highlight something because you blew over it really fast and you're a very humble person, but I want to draw attention to the fact, and I want you guys to make a note of this. If we talk about 3 secrets, I think this is one of them, because I have watched Omuugn go through the whole entire pandemic. And this is when Zoom became really popular to everybody. Everybody kind of like woke up and learned about Zoom. And during the time that the pandemic struck, there was this big thing: stay at home, don't go out of your house, and don't go near other people because then you're going to get them sick, kind of a thing. And so, in order to stay close to all of his children and his grandchildren, nieces, nephews, all the different people, great grandchildren that he mentioned, he showed up for a Zoom call. And not just once a week. I mean, not just once in a while, but once a week. And I want to highlight the fact, because I know this. He's not going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you. Every single week when that Zoom call went live, Omuugn and his wife, my mom, were the 2 people that were on that call every single week. Every single week. And the consistency of playing that role is what I want to share with you. It's the consistency, because now we are 4 years on the other side of the pandemic, and every single week, without fail, they have showed up. Those 2 people have showed up every single time to say hi to their kids and their grandkids and their great grandkids, the nieces, the nephews, anyone else that showed up on the call. There was never any rules, requirements, or obligation to show up, and they showed up every single time. Now, there's one excuse, in that they went out of town because they had some medical appointments. And I want to tell you how impressed I was that Omuugn picked up the phone and he called me personally and he said, I want to let you know that I'm on the road and I'll be traveling to a medical appointment and I will not be on the call. And so I wanted to let you know that I will not be there. He did not have to call me. There's no obligation to be on the call. I wasn't holding him, like, hey, you got to be on this call or else. It wasn't any of that. He chose to show up every single week. He chose to show up and play that role with a regularity that is absolutely reliable by anyone in the family. Anyone at any time knows that if they show up to that call, who are they going to see? They're going to see Omuugn and my mom, and they're going to be able to chat with them. The kids, the grandkids, the great-grandkids. And I want to highlight that because that is one of the most impressive, empowering things that I've ever seen a parent do, is even though there may be rifts, there may be ups and downs, they may not feel well. I don't know what all the different things are, but it's human nature, biorhythms, who knows what. They have showed up every single time without fail for 4 years. Every single week on Zoom. So I just want to share that with you. I think that is one of the secrets of parenting. You got to show up every single time consistently because you play a role, and that role is based on reliability and accountability and all the things. So my hat is off to you.
Well, thank you. I agree that we need to identify the roles and we need to be consistent. We need to be dependable and trustworthy. And so showing up is one of the ways that we do that. Another role that we have really is, as a parent, is to teach our children how to think. Sometimes we don't spend enough time teaching our children to question everything and to ask pertinent questions. We're fed a lot of information from a lot of different sources in the world today. The internet is full of information. The neighborhood is full of information. A lot of things are going on. We need to learn how to question things and how to analyze information and facts so that we're not making assumptions based on the wrong material. As parents, it's really important that we take that role as being the role models in questioning things and looking into things and not just accepting everything on the surface, because There's a lot of misinformation in the world today. There are a lot of different belief systems. We talked about this before, that there are only like 13% of people who like the way the country is moving. There's an increase in crime and all of the negative things that we don't want to go into. It's because people are not really thinking things through. They're not really saying, well, this is not the country that I prefer to live in. I would prefer that it's a different way. What can I do to make an impact, to make my country better, to make my community better, to make my state better, to make my family better? We have to be the role model to do that. And
I remember growing up, one of the, I don't know if it was a mantra or a motto, but one of the things that kept coming up over and over again was the encouragement to question everything. And I really appreciated that, because as I've become an adult, sometimes we get trapped in a rut and we do the same things over and over again. And as I'm an adult, I'm still questioning everything. Like, hey, I've been doing this for a very long way, a certain way for a very long period of time. Does this still serve me? Why do I do this way? Is this helping me? Is this halting my progress? And by questioning everything, I've been able to make small pivots along the way that have really empowered my life. So I love that concept, to question everything. That might be number 2 on the second secret of parenting, is to question everything.
well, there are a lot of secrets that we're going to explore today.
We
There's
have
an
another
interesting,
secret, if I might, we have another secret that says we must allow our children to make decisions and mistakes appropriate to their level of maturity. Tell us about that. We must allow our children to make decisions and mistakes appropriate to their level of maturity.
yeah, everyone learns differently, and every child learns differently. And sometimes we want our children to be perfect. We want them to make all of the right decisions for the right reasons, at the right times, in the right places. They don't know all of those things yet. So as they're small, we do need to figure out a way to teach them correct things to do. And one of the ways that sort of cemented itself into my philosophy from the beginning was that the older children would be an example for the younger children. And I had no idea how many children I would have at the time. But I knew from my own experience with just one brother that I looked to him for a lot of things. He was my example in many, many different areas of life. He was 5 years older than I was, and so he was more mature, and I would look at him and figure out how to do things that were proper just from his example. My parents were examples to me in a lot of things. So we need to take the responsibility to make sure that children understand things for their level of understanding. A little child, as they grow, they are going to make mistakes. That when they eat, they're going to slop food all over themselves and all over the floor. You let them do that, and then you let them help you clean it up. And that there's a responsibility with eating that way. And everything they do, you stop and teach them and let them experiment. If they get it wrong, at least they're going to learn from it. If a little girl is helping her mother bake some cookies and they burn the cookies, that's a lesson that you can learn. And if you're going to do something, you have to follow through. You have to make sure that things are the right way, or they burn. So everything that we do is a lesson. Every decision that we make really is a lesson. And the earlier that children can learn that, the better. So you want to make certain that you're teaching them those lessons. Allow them to make mistakes, allow them to interject their own thoughts into things. And then you can show them why maybe those thoughts don't work out very well, or why this could be done a different way that would be more efficient, more quickly done, a better way to do it. So
there's another insight here that is very unusual. And it's unusual in that I've never seen it in a parenting book before. So I'm curious about this one. And it says, go for walks as a family. Tell me about that.
Well, we have to create ways to spend time with our families that are productive and beneficial to everyone. First of all, it's beneficial to be out in nature, just to be out in the fresh air and to move out of instead of being in a home all day. And today it's even worse because of the computers and the games and all the things that are going on that keep you busy and occupied all of the time. You need to stop and go out. We had a red wagon, and we would put like the 4 youngest people in the wagon, and then the older children would walk, and we walked everywhere. We walked through cemeteries and read the epitaphs on the stones, and we walked on university campuses and went inside science buildings and looked at dinosaur bones and Foucault pendulums and all different kinds of things. We'd walk on the outside of the campuses to look at the landscaping and the flowers and the shrubbery and all of those things that are really beautiful. It was a way to spend time with the family, and you could visit and you could talk along the way and you could show people things and and the older kids would run around. We didn't walk in single file or anything. We had children running around and running up and down sidewalks and up and down stairs, and we just had a lot of fun. Our walks were fun. And like I say, we walked at night under the moonlight. We walked on Sunday afternoons around old churches and university campuses. And sometimes we'd walk along the road. You have to be safe. I'm not encouraging anyone to put their lives at risk. But we'd walk in places that were just fun to be. And so, yeah, it was one of the ways that we could spend time together as a family that sort of benefited everyone.
I want to highlight something there, and I might be wrong, but I think this might be number 3 in the secret of parenting. And the reason being is this: I was part of those walks. And what I noticed was that as children, we had a lot of energy. And so by going for walks as a family, we did get to run around and play and walk, and it burned a lot of energy, but it also got the blood flowing, which was a health way to exercise as a family. So we're exercising as a family. Then you also mentioned talking, walking and talking. And I don't think you realized at the time. So I'm going to share this with you from my perspective as one of those children that went on all the family walks. It was so therapeutic going on those family walks, walking and talking and interacting with each other, that when I became married, I decided for myself, instead of us going to therapy and fighting with each other or, slamming doors or, well, I'll just, have space by myself until I calm down from, I don't know, whatever people do. We decided to go for walks and talks. So anytime there's a moment of angst in our marriage, that means we got to put on a pair of shoes and get outside and go walking and talking together. And what that does is that recycles the blood flow and the oxygen that's going through our bodies. And it's very hard to be angry and upset when you're walking and you're enjoying nature and you are isolated from, like you said, the computers and the technology and all the stuff at home that consumes our time and attention. When you're out walking in nature with the person you love, and this is your family, what happens then is you try to find ways to be more productive and ways to work through your situations. And so as long as we're walking, we're talking. And if, for example, we are frustrated, when we get back to the house and the walk is over, so is the talk. When we're done walking, we're done talking. And what I mean by that is we're not going to bring those angst feelings back home with us. So we're going to walk until they are resolved. Then when we get home, it's peaceful, because the home is a place of refuge. You taught me that. And so as an adult now, whenever there's a moment of frustration, we go walking and talking. And so I love that, because that has been one of my salvation moments throughout the whole entire course of my marriage. And I've only been married 22 years. I know this year you're celebrating, I think it's 58 years of marriage. And so something you have done is correct. It works. And now 22 years in, I'm here to tell you it works. So I think walking might be the number 3 secret in the parenting secrets of today's How to Raise a Family. I think that's an amazing thing that you're sharing with us. Thank you.
And we can actually expand that a little bit too. You can expand that into ball games, taking your kids to the park. We used to go to every park in every city. Uh, it's fun to play ball and to kick the ball and to run around the bases and make up your own games. We used to do that all of the time. You can also incorporate things like swimming classes and you go for hikes, not just a walk, but you can hike up mountains. We used to go on a lot of hikes in the mountains. There are a lot of nature trails now in around some of the big cities. You can always find a place to go for an interesting walk or be out in nature. But you can go for hikes, ball games. You want physical activity. You want to run around and, like you say, let some of that stuff out. So yeah, it's a really good way to do that.
I
But
love that. I just love that.
well, it's fun. And going back to the roles before we leave, um, I think it's important to teach children before they leave the home. The parents should teach about budgets and how to utilize finances. They should teach about automobiles. Instead of a child wanting to get their driver's license, you should start out by teaching them how to change a tire and how to check the fluids in a car and how to maintain a car and how to be responsible. That kind of precedes getting your license and driving one, because you can be in all kinds of emergencies and you should have an idea of what to do. It used to be different in the olden days because cars were easier to work on. If you had some baling wire and an old wrench, you could fix most things. But there are a lot of things to learn about an automobile today to keep it running and optimized. But we should at least learn the basics.
Speaking of the basics, I remember one time I was 8 years old and you were working the night shift and the car was well, we had one car and mom was going to go pick you up. And I think that it was important that, I don't know, for some reason or another, that somebody drive to pick you up. And anyway, I was on that road to pick you up that night. And what happened was, and I don't remember all the details, but I was in the car, I was in my pajamas, and we had a flat tire on the way home. So it was like after midnight because you got off work at midnight, and we were there by the side of the road. And you said, okay, now is the time I'm going to teach you how to change a tire because here it was in real life. Now it was the end of a work shift. You were super tired. You could have said, and it would have been really easy to say, I'm so tired. Let's just call for help and we'll deal with this another time. Or however you do. You could have changed the tire. We could have stayed in the car at the end. But you had us get out of the car. You had us put the tire on the car. You had us take it off, put it on, take it off, put it on. And all of us got a turn to do that there in the middle of the night by the side of the road. And I was in my pajamas. And I thought, this is crazy. I mean, this is crazy. Why am I learning how to take a tire off a car and put a tire on, da, da, da. And I cannot tell you over the course of my life how many tires I've had to change. And every time the tire goes flat, I'm like, wait a second. I got this. As a tiny child, my dad taught me how to change the tire, how to jack it up and how to stand on the little bar so that I could give it enough oomph to get the lug nuts off. And I can't tell you how many tires I've replaced in rainstorms, on the side of the road, on the interstate, way out in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, no worries. I got this. My dad taught me how. So I want to highlight the fact that although it was uncomfortable, although it was the middle of the night, and although you didn't have to do that, you gave me the power to take over and do that for myself. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Another thing is home repair. There are a lot of, I'm aware of some children who have gone to school and they leave home, they've gone to college, and they don't know how to really take care of themselves. They haven't learned how to do their own cooking and their own laundry. They've never been taught how to repair a home. There are a lot of things in home maintenance that you should learn how to do. There are basic plumbing things and basic wiring things. And with the access that we have on the internet today of instruction tutorials on how to do everything, there's just no excuse not to look at those things before you leave home. You should have a basic understanding of how to take care of yourself. And so There's so many things. You should teach your children, for example, about diet. There are so many things that are popular today, like soda pop, like sugar treats, fast foods, on and on and on. Foods filled with chemicals and pesticides and herbicides and all kinds of things. We need to teach our children how to select a good nutritional diet and the importance of it, and teach them the value of taking care of their bodies while they're young. As you get older, you wish that you had known a few things earlier in your life, that you would have done things differently. A lot of people in today's society pick up bad habits like alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and all kinds of things that are really, really detrimental to your body and your health. And when you get older, you pay the price of all of those things. And so it's important that we teach our children how to cook their food, how to repair their house, how to fix their car, how to do a little bit of plumbing and electrical and all of those things. It makes them really capable adults who can think through a lot of different situations. And I think that's really, really helpful.
Whoa, I think you just tipped the scale into number 4 secret of raising kids, which is teach them to be responsible adults by teaching them life skills.
Yeah, that's really, really important.
All right, the next one, and we got to move through these, but I got to tell you, the next one says, let people know that you love them unconditionally. Tell me about that. How do we love our children unconditionally?
Well, I'm flooded with all kinds of memories. I did
ways
some
that
things.
Ways that we've challenged you on that.
I've done a lot of things right, but I've done some things wrong, and I've learned the hard way. There was a situation when we lived in a particular town, and someone asked one of my sons if they would house sit for them while they were out of town. And it ended up that one of the other brothers and their friends came to this person's home. And they turned it into an alcohol party and got in the hot tub of this family, and they were just having it was such a hullabaloo that the neighbor called the owner of the home, and the owner of the home called me and said, "What is going on?" So I went down there and I walked into this situation that was just a horrible situation. I tried to raise my family so that we would be examples in the community of a good, strong family. And here we had just shot everything down in this one instance where really, really bad decisions had been made. And I removed my son from that situation, and I kicked everybody else out of the house. And I was really beside myself. And I told my son that I had no idea what I was going to do at this point. I said, "You're old enough that you don't need a babysitter, and yet the way you're acting, you need a babysitter. Do I have to babysit you all of the time?" And I was just beside myself. And the way this ended was that my son packed his bag and he left home. And he was gone for probably 18 years. And it was a very significant thing. And the thing that I learned in that story was that my son was really more important than the situation that had occurred. I did not show my son that I loved him unconditionally. It was sort of like I loved him conditionally. If he were obedient all of the time, and if he did the right thing all of the time, that I would love him. And if he did something that was really out of sorts, that I didn't love him. And so I went out of my way to interact with him, and I apologized to him. I said, I did the thing that I felt was right at the time, but as I look back at it, it was the wrong thing to do.
Mm.
I should have shown my son in that moment that he was more important to me than what had just happened. And so I reconciled with him, and we're really good friends now, and we interact almost on a daily basis. And he comes around and helps me all of the time. So we have a good relationship now. But the thing that I really, really learned, and it's something that we have to keep in mind, is that the people that we love are the most important thing. And sometimes they do things that we don't approve of. They make mistakes. All different kinds of circumstances and possibilities happen. But we need to love those people through all of that. We need to show them that no matter what they do, we still love them. They're still our child. They're still our brother. They're still our parent, whoever it might be. We love them unconditionally. We don't like what they do. We don't like decisions that they've made, but they are really, really important to us. And we need to let them know that we love them. So that was kind of a negative experience. I've had really positive experiences. I remember one time I got home from work, and one of my sons had taken a hammer, and we lived in an old home. It was an adobe home, a 2-story old adobe home. The walls were like 18 inches thick.
Mm.
And the windows, they had the little tiny square panes of glass in them. Well, my son had found a hammer, and he went around and he started to knock the panes of glass out of the windows. And I guess he thought that was really exciting because there was a
Because
lot
you
of
kept
action
doing it.
involved. Well, in this particular case, I didn't get angry, but I put my arm around him and I said, "Wow, we have a big job ahead of us. We have to replace all of these windows. And it's a good idea to take care of things rather than to try to fix them." So he and I replaced, I think it was 9 windows that we had to replace. And he learned how to replace windows. It was a teaching moment, but I showed him unconditional love in that moment. We talked earlier about children go through stages and they make mistakes. You have to let them make mistakes to learn. It was one of those moments. And so unconditional love can manifest under all kinds of circumstances. You wouldn't think that a little child would go along and break all of the windows out of your house. But yeah, it's just an important thing to, people are more important than situations.
How would you recommend someone recognize that moment? Because I know sometimes it's easy, and you made a comment about when in the first story where there was a party going on and you didn't respond the right way. You said he went away for 18 years. And in the 18 years during that window, you became a different person. You advanced and became more mature as a parent. And so, how would you be aware in hindsight? If you would have dealt with that situation differently, it may not have been 18 years. But how today, because I know many of us just react. We don't spend the time to slow down and to stop and to really think situations through. How would you recommend that we stop and we tap into that unconditional love in a moment when we are angry and we are reacting and we are not really thinking very clearly or logically?
Well, that was the purpose of writing the books. Is what I wanted to do is take each one of the traits and characteristics that we have and focus on each trait so that we know what it is. What does patience really look like? What would it be like if I were a really patient person? What would it look like if instead of reacting, I just stopped, took a couple of deep breaths, and referred back to some foundational principles and universal laws? How can I respond the right way in this circumstance? So it's a matter of disciplining yourself and training yourself to respond appropriately under every situation. In life, we're going to face all kinds of situations. In fact, one of my sayings is life is a progression of plan B.
Mm.
Life is just not going to go the way you think it will. Always things will change, things will interrupt, things will be different than you thought they would. A 15-minute job will end up being a 2-day nightmare. just what you expect isn't the way things turn out. So you have to discipline yourself to respond the proper way, to act the proper way. Look at a child and say, this child is misbehaving, but they're only 4.
Mm-hmm.
They're only 4. So misbehaving is kind of natural for a child of 4. They haven't learned to self-discipline. They haven't learned to inculcate some of these traits that we're talking about. So when they're misbehaving, that's the time to sit down with them and communicate and say, hey, you're behaving this way, and let me share with you an idea that would make your life happier if you responded this way, and teach them how to think, how to solve problems, how to analyze and learn lessons. That's what we're supposed to do as parents. Teach our children how to learn, how to think, how to respond, how to inculcate all of these traits so that they turn out to be a really, really nice person. So
I want to throw something out at you on the same concept of loving people unconditionally. I came to you personally, not on this show, but personally behind the scenes, a couple of weeks ago, and I was tattletelling on another adult that I was having a kerfluffle with. And you listened very patiently, and I said, "What do I do in this situation?" And you gave me a very simple answer that kind of stuck with me, and it wasn't the answer I was looking for, and it's not the answer that I wanted, but it made me stop and think, and it changed the way that I behave. You said, "You need to be the adult in the situation." And I was like, I'm acting like the kid in this situation, and I'm tattletelling, and I'm expecting you to solve my problem. And you gave me the permission to show up as the adult in the situation and to take control of it. And I realized, as if I was going to be the adult in this situation, what would I do? And what I would do is I would reach out in an unconditional sort of way, and I would be more forgiving and more understanding and more loving than I was being hold fast to my justification in my behavior, and I'm not the one to apologize because I'm not the one that did anything wrong, and I have all of these juvenile thoughts going through my head. And I stopped and I said, if I was going to be the adult in the room, what would I do differently? And it goes back to that secret that you shared with us earlier about question everything. What would I do differently? And I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have to apologize and ask for forgiveness, even though I didn't think I was the one in the wrong. And so I did. I changed completely my behavior based on that situation. And it resolved perfectly. And I was like, okay, that worked. So I want to thank you for that. I think that might be secret number 5 in loving people unconditionally, is to take responsibility and to be the adult in the room and to not wait for other people to come to us, but for us to be the one that exercises that unconditional love and say, no matter what, I'm unattached to the outcome. You don't have to love me back, but I'm going to love us both. I'm going to love enough for both of us, and that's okay. If you never speak to me again, that's okay. I love us both unconditionally enough, and it's good, right?
good. I'm glad that you learned the lesson. And I'm glad the lesson worked. Sometimes you'll do something and the lesson won't work, but I mean, it
Well,
won't work immediately, but
and I think that's the thing. I mean, we grew up in an environment of forgiveness. And in this particular scenario, I asked for forgiveness. And I don't really know what forgiveness means per se. Like, how does one know they have been forgiven? But I was completely unattached from the outcome. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to love unconditionally. I'm going to ask for forgiveness, and I'm going to forgive. And then whatever happens from the other party is completely irrelevant to me. I'm not going to walk away and go, well, they didn't forgive me back or whatever. And I'm going to stop tattletelling, and I'm going to stop playing the tape of what originally happened in my head. And I'm going to stop trying to figure out what if things had been different, because they're not different. And I'm going to walk away and say, I did everything I knew I was supposed to do. And whatever happens next is okay. And it completely wiped away all the anger and the frustration and the animosity and all the things. And
yeah,
so,
getting angry never helps. Yelling at somebody never helps. Fighting and quarreling with someone never helps.
mhm,
You need to learn to respond appropriately to every circumstance. And it takes a lot of discipline to do that,
mhm.
because we're emotional beings, and we have a tendency to jump the gun and to show our feelings. we should take a few deep breaths and do a little introspection before we act or say things.
I want to
But
highlight that. I want to highlight that. And I don't know that that's a secret that you were going to share with us today, but I want to highlight that because growing up in a home underneath your roof, I never remember a time, never in my entire, all the years that I lived at home, where you raised your voice and you yelled at the kids. Never once did I see that. Ever, 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 ever. I never saw it.
well, I'm
Ever.
glad that's what you remember.
Well, what's interesting to me is that's how I grew up. I grew up, you did not yell at me. And because you did not yell at me, I did not believe that was how I was supposed to behave. And so when I got married, I did not yell at my husband, and he did not yell at me. And so as we've gone on, I remember one night there was and this is in my marriage, there was a miscommunication. And my husband got huffy and he went to the door and he stopped at the door and he turned around and he said, I'm not being the best version of myself. And if I walk through that door right now, I'm going to take this anger with me. So before I leave and I walk out the door, and this is just the door of the bedroom. This was not like he was like leaving the house. Before I walk out that door, I want to stop and I want to apologize. I was like, okay, fair enough. But that is how I was raised. I was raised in that we don't yell at each other and belittle each other and shame each other and make each other feel bad when there's an issue that can be worked through. And you taught me that by not yelling and screaming at us and making us feel small and stupid. Thank
I'm
you.
so glad that some of the lessons took.
Well, they are good lessons, but I'm the proof. I'm the proof on the other end of it that we don't have to live our lives being frustrated at other people and making them feel. And I want to go back to one thing. I know we're running short of time. There's so many. I would love it. I'm looking at the book here. We got like 5 more pages of insights. This is not going to wrap up today. It is not. But I want to share this with you. There was a time when I misbehaved. And I won't go into all the details of how or why I misbehaved, but I misbehaved. And I was in deep trouble as a kid. I was in deep trouble. And you came home and we had the smileys. They were up on a nail. Mine was up on the top nail. It was turned over to a frown. And you walked in and you said, I'd like to see you in my den. And I went in your den and I knew, oh boy, here it comes. I am in big trouble. And you said, and I'll never forget this, Angela, you're a really bright little girl. And I'm very curious about your behavior today. Can you share with me why what happened happened? And you gave me all the power. You gave me the power to explain myself in my childish sort of way because I wasn't an adult. And you weren't looking at my behavior from an adult's perspective. You met me on my level. You got down on my level. You were eye to eye with me. And you said, share with me what your thought process was. Why did you behave this way today? And I was like, but you let me have the courtesy of telling you why I behaved that way. It's the most interesting psychological punishment I've ever had. You gave me all the power. And then you said, how are we going to fix this? What do you think is a fair punishment? And then you let me decide my punishment. And I walked away going, wait a second, what just happened? And I've used that so many times with my employees when I just want to say, you're fired. I didn't. I said, you're very creative and I want to hear why you did what you did. Share with me what your reasons are. It was a way to honor the person and to let them, as you say, make mistakes in an appropriate manner according to their age. I made some mistakes and I got punished and I picked rocks out of the garden and washed out dirty diapers as my punishment. But based on my knowledge at the time, you did not shame me or blame me or make me feel small and stupid. And I really appreciated that.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that some of the lessons have sunk in deeply.
I think that might be trick number 7, though, or secret number 7 for parenting. What a brilliant way to raise a child.
I will give you a secret.
Okay.
A secret is to spend quantity time and quality time with the people that you love.
Mm.
I've been in several situations where in today's society, people are on their phones or their little computer games or their tablets or whatever it is, and they're almost unaware of what's going on around them. They're in situations that they could really learn a lot of things. And instead of interacting with the people that they're close to and spending time with the people like if you're visiting someone, visiting friends, visiting family, instead of giving them 100% of your time and developing that relationship, you spend time on your smartphone or on your tablet or your computer game or whatever it might be. I've seen entire families, everyone have their own device, sitting around doing their own thing. But I think it's important that you have quality time with the people that you're around.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, you need to look them in the eye. You need to communicate with them directly. You need to be able to share your feelings and your processes and what's going on in your life, to learn to appreciate people and to learn lessons from them. I've been around some of my grandchildren, and they don't really know that I worked in a steel mill, or
Mm-hmm.
that I was the engineer of a train, or that I had a company that made no moving part windmills, or that I've processed ore into metals. And I have a lot of things to share with people, but sometimes people are so engaged in their own little world that they haven't taken the opportunity to interact with their family in a meaningful way. I think it's really, really important that we have quantity and quality time with the people that we love. You can learn something from everyone. And as I think back to my grandparents, I didn't spend enough time talking with them and having them share their experience of how they learned different things and different things that happened to them as they were growing up. I spent my time playing and running around their yards and doing other things. I should have spent time with the people that were really, really important in my life. And another reason that I wrote the books is that I didn't even have that kind of interaction with my own parents. What do you really believe about all of these things? This is a trait, a characteristic. What would be the proper way to express that, or whatever it might be? And to get into all of this different information that would be really, really constructive for my life. I spent a lot of my life on the periphery of things, doing my own thing without realizing that I had lessons to learn from all of these people that I was around. And I missed that opportunity. My grandparents are gone now. I can't communicate with them. My parents are gone now. I can't communicate with them. And I wish that I had my life to live over again. I would have shared more of my time, my focus, my quality time with them, learning about them and the lessons that they had learned and what had made them the kind of people that they are, and their life stories. Quality time and quantity time. Spend that with the people that you love, and don't have your life wrapped up in all of this stuff that's going on. That stuff will always be there. You'll always have a computer game to play. You'll always have something on your smartphone that you can look up and learn from. It's not bad to do those things, but there's a time to do those things. There's a way to do those things that's most productive. And you don't want to spend a lot of your time doing something that's not productive. Spend your time doing things that are most productive for your life. And that's another secret, by the way.
I think that was two secrets squeezed into one. I think we're now at 8 secrets or 9 secrets out of the 3 that you promised us. But that goes back to, you've always given more than you promised, and under
Well,
promise and over deliver. And I really appreciate your time and your focus today on sharing some of these insights with us. Because if we take even 3 of the 8 or 9 that you shared with us, and we start applying them, we're going to become better people. As we wrap up today, what is the one thing we can do today? And we're going to have to do a part 3 to this, because there's so
I
many
think we will.
interesting family insights that I think we've got to go another round and unpack the rest of these. So thank you for today. What is our call to action for today, that you would leave us with as an assignment between now and next week?
Well, I think everyone needs to ask the question, how important is my family to me? A lot of teenagers, a lot of children want to be away from home. They want to go, they want to leave. And your home should be a place where everyone would want to come and want to be. And so if you don't have that kind of a home, you need to ask yourself, what can I do to make my home a better place to be so that everyone who lives here would have all of their needs fulfilled? And how would our learning experiences be different if we made different decisions and spent different time doing different things? Look at your family and ask yourself the question, how can I make my family better this week, this moment? What are some of the things that I can do that would strengthen my relationships to show people that I love them and that I want to have a better relationship with them? Let people know that you appreciate them, that you love them, and take the time to put your arm around someone you love and say, hey, I'm so glad that you're part of my family. I want you to know that I really, really appreciate all the things that you do. And I admire you and I love you. And it makes people adhere to you. It's positive energy. You want to infuse people with positive energy, love, and
Thank
appreciation.
Thank you for the positive energy and love that you've shared with us. I also want to say hi and thank you to our Facebook users. Melanie Brown says, awesome message. Thank you. Julie Brown says, love the stories and insights. Thanks for sharing. I want to say thank you to all of the viewers that showed up today. And for those of you that are watching the replay, I really appreciate you guys joining us. And as you leave this week, please take the advice of Omuugn and think about your families and how you can make your time with your families more impactful and more memorable. Thanks so much for today, and we're going to continue this conversation on the Insights on Family next week, same time, same